What is literature? A microlecture by J.J. Haas. Let's start with a straightforward definition. Literature is writing that stands the test of time. There's nothing controversial about that, right? In fact, it's a bit prosaic. But the definition gets more interesting when we break it down into its components, writing and the test of time. Let's take a deeper dive. Writing can be defined as the representation of language in text through the use of signs or symbols. For example, here we have the first printed book, the Gutenberg Bible, which was published in Latin in 1455. Writing can be broken down into genres. The word genre comes from the French and means kind. So the major genres or kinds of writing include poetry and prose can be further broken down into nonfiction and fiction. Genres are formed by conventions that change over time as new genres are invented and the use of old genres are discontinued. Poetry is a genre of writing that emphasizes the meter of the words and the beauty of expression. For example, one of my favorite poems is The Second Coming by William Butler Yeats. Prose is a genre of writing whose rhythm focuses on the irregularity of everyday speech. Prose consists of nonfiction and fiction. Nonfiction is a subgenre of prose that is based on fact. A good example of nonfiction is On the Origin of Species by Means of Natural Selection by Charles Darwin. Fiction is a subgenre of prose that is based on the imagination. For example, many people consider Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy to be one of the finest novels ever written, and the novel itself is an important subgenre of fiction. So what do we mean by the test of time? Well, first let's talk about a point in time. Let's say that you write a novel, publish it on January 1st, and track it for the first quarter of the new year. On this graph, the x-axis represents book reviews, which is a qualitative measure, and the y-axis represents consumer sales, which is a quantitative measure. There are effectively 4 quadrants where your book could land. Frankly, the low sales, low reviews quadrant is where most novels end up. 1 million books are published a year in the United States alone, and books on average sell only 250 copies each. A novel could be literary or genre, well-written or poorly written, self-published or published through a major publisher, but if it ends up here, it's immediately in danger of becoming a forgotten book. The high sales, low reviews quadrant typically consists of popular fiction, especially genre fiction that follows a familiar plotline such as romance, fantasy, or mystery. An example of this type of fiction is The Da Vinci Code by Dan Brown, a poorly written thriller that nonetheless captured the popular imagination for a short period of time. The low sales, high reviews quadrant typically consists of literary fiction that focuses on character and writing style. An example of this type of fiction is Ulysses by James Joyce, an acclaimed and historically significant novel that nevertheless continues to have a limited audience of academics and other writers. The high sales, high reviews quadrant is where you want your novel to be. I tend to think of this type of novel as combining excellent writing and broad popular appeal. A good example is The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. If your novel can find its way into this quadrant in the short term, then it stands a much better chance of being remembered in the long term. Over time, book reviews will become literary criticism, and consumer sales will become classroom assignments. A book that combines excellent writing and broad popular appeal has the best chance of standing the test of time to become accepted as literature.